In the summer of 1962, the world was at the height of the Cold War, a time of intense rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. The tension between these two superpowers was palpable, each striving to prove its dominance not just on Earth, but in the vast expanse of space as well. The Cold War was no longer just a political and military battle, it had become a race to claim technological supremacy. Every advancement in science and technology, every breakthrough in the skies, seemed to carry the weight of national pride. Yet amid the tension and the scramble for dominance, something truly extraordinary was about to happen. Something that would forever change the way humanity understood the limits of flight and the mysteries of space. In those early days, NASA's predecessors, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA, had already begun to push the boundaries of aviation. The world was just beginning to understand the potential of high-speed, high-altitude flights. The concept of breaking the sound barrier, let alone reaching the edge of space, was something reserved for the pages of science fiction. But there, on the cutting edge of technology, a new and daring project was taking shape. It would come to be known as the X-15, a rocket-powered plane that would soar to altitudes and speeds never before imagined. The X-15 program wasn't just another aircraft project. It was a bold leap into the unknown, an audacious attempt to see how far humanity could push its technological limits. The mission was to build a plane capable of reaching the very edge of Earth's atmosphere, an altitude so high that it would essentially touch the boundary between the Earth and space. It would travel faster than any manned aircraft ever had, at speeds so rapid that they would leave even the fastest jets of the time far behind. The stakes were high, and the world was watching. In the midst of this ambitious endeavor stood a man who would soon make history. His name was Major Robert White, a veteran of 3 wars, and he would become the first to truly test the limits of human flight. As the chief test pilot for the X-15 program, White was entrusted with the monumental task of piloting this rocket-powered plane into the stratosphere, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. With every flight, White and his fellow pilots were not just flying, they were rewriting the rulebook of aviation and exploration. But with this pioneering venture came great risk. White and his team were about to become the first humans to travel faster than the speed of sound at altitudes far higher than commercial jets or even military aircraft had ever reached. The first flight of the X-15 was a journey into the unknown, a world where every second mattered and every decision was a matter of life or death. At 45,000 feet, or nearly 8.5 miles above Earth, the aircraft would be catapulted into an environment that no human had ever experienced. This new frontier was both exhilarating and terrifying. The X-15 was powered by a rocket engine that would propel it to speeds of over 3,800 miles per hour, nearly 5 times the speed of sound. At that velocity, the forces acting on the plane were beyond comprehension. The higher they flew, the less oxygen there was, and the faster they traveled, the thinner the air became. In a world where a single miscalculation could mean disaster, Major Robert White had to maintain a razor-sharp focus, flying a plane that seemed to defy every known law of physics. Yet despite the risks, there was a sense of exhilaration, a feeling of being on the edge of discovery. Then as White took the X-15 to an altitude of 60 miles, he encountered something that would forever change his view of the skies. As he sped through the upper layers of Earth's atmosphere, something strange happened. White spotted multiple unidentified objects outside his cockpit window, objects that appeared to be following him. His heart raced as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. He was traveling faster than anyone had ever traveled, yet here were these objects, keeping pace with him, moving in ways that defied logic. White's eyes widened in disbelief. He was no longer just a pilot. he was a witness to something beyond comprehension. These objects, small and tumbling through the air, seemed to be moving in harmony with the X-15, as though they were drawn to the aircraft, keeping a perfect distance. As a trained test pilot, White had flown in some of the most extreme conditions, but this was something else entirely. The objects weren't behaving like anything White had ever encountered, and in his mind, he couldn't shake the thought, what could they possibly be? His mind raced as he tried to gather information. How far were these objects from him? How big were they? Could they be a threat? But before he could formulate an answer, the objects disappeared as mysteriously as they had appeared. White's pulse was racing. He had just had an experience that no one on Earth had ever had, flying faster and higher than any human had before and seeing things that no one else had. He immediately radioed in the report to ground control, detailing what he had seen. "There are things out there," he told them, the words heavy with uncertainty and wonder. When White returned to Earth, he was debriefed by engineers who were eager to learn more about his flight. But despite their probing questions, White remained consistent in his story. The objects had been small, about the size of his hand, and they had been tumbling and moving alongside the X-15 as it soared through the stratosphere. But the most perplexing detail? The objects had been traveling at the same speed as the X-15. No one had ever seen anything like it. It seemed impossible. Yet Major White knew what he had seen, and he had no reason to fabricate the story. As the engineers examined the data from the flight, they speculated that the objects White had seen might have been something far more mundane, perhaps the remnants of ice crystals formed by the extreme cold of the upper atmosphere, but even that explanation seemed insufficient. Why would ice crystals behave in such a way, staying in perfect formation with an aircraft traveling faster than Mach 4? And why did the objects appear so clearly defined? The engineers couldn't explain it, but they were quick to dismiss the idea of extraterrestrial involvement. The official explanation was that the objects were simply byproducts of the X-15's experimental propulsion system. Ice crystals from the liquid nitrogen fuel were suspected to be breaking off as the plane flew at extreme speeds and altitudes. Yet even with this theory, there were still questions left unanswered. The footage from the cameras on board the X-15, which should have shown the objects, mysteriously disappeared. Despite the fact that the plane had been equipped with multiple cameras to capture every moment of the flight, no footage of the objects has ever surfaced. This only added to the mystery. White's report became the only concrete evidence of the strange event, but without the visual proof, the story remained in the realm of the unexplained. The mystery of what Major White had witnessed that day has continued to intrigue people for decades. Was it simply a case of atmospheric phenomena, or was it something far more extraordinary? Some have suggested that the objects were the remains of a satellite or spacecraft. Others, more boldly, have proposed that White might have been the first human to encounter extraterrestrial life. Yet, without definitive evidence, the mystery endures. What Major White experienced that day remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of space exploration. It was a moment of profound wonder, a glimpse into a world where the boundaries between the known and the unknown blur. As White himself said, "I saw something that I can't explain. I know what I saw, and I have no idea what it was." For those of us who look up at the night sky, the question still lingers. Are we truly alone in the universe? Or is there more out there waiting to be discovered? Major Robert White's encounter on that fateful day in 1962 serves as a reminder that sometimes the greatest mysteries are the ones that remain unsolved, and perhaps, just perhaps, the truth is still out there, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover it. In the heart of the Cold War, when the world was divided by ideological walls and nations raced to prove their supremacy, there existed a thrilling chapter in history that would go down in the annals of aviation. It was a time of incredible advancements, a time when men and women would push the boundaries of human endurance and technology. It was the 1960s, a period where the world held its breath, watching as humankind reached for the stars. And at the forefront of that daring pursuit, there was one man who was destined to become a legend, Major Robert White, the man who flew faster and higher than anyone before him. Imagine a sky so high, so vast, that it felt as though you could touch the very edge of the unknown. Robert White didn't just touch it, he soared through it. As the chief test pilot for NASA's groundbreaking X-15 rocket plane program, White was about to make history in ways that no one could have imagined. The X-15, a marvel of engineering, was designed to reach the edge of Earth's atmosphere faster than anything that had come before it. It was a machine built to break records, to push the limits of physics, and to venture into territory that was largely uncharted, even for the finest minds of NASA. Major Robert White wasn't just any pilot. He was a man forged in the crucible of war, a veteran of 3 conflicts with nerves of steel and an unwavering commitment to his country's pursuit of technological excellence. But even the most seasoned aviators must have felt a sense of awe as they prepared for their flights. The X-15 was a beast of a plane, a rocket-powered marvel designed to reach altitudes and speeds never before witnessed. It was a plane that promised not only to break records, but to shatter expectations. On a blistering day in 1962, Robert White strapped himself into the cockpit of the X-15, a machine that could reach speeds of over 4,000 miles per hour. That's 4 times the speed of sound. As the engines roared to life and the rocket plane was carried aloft by the massive B-52 mothership, White prepared for an experience unlike anything he had encountered. He knew this flight wasn't just another test run, it was a chance to make history. It was a moment that could only exist in the wild, reckless ambition of the Cold War era. Climbing to an altitude of 45,000 feet, the X-15 began its fiery ascent into the thin, frigid air of the upper atmosphere. As White accelerated to speeds nearing 3,800 miles per hour, something extraordinary happened. Suddenly a sight appeared that would forever alter the way he and the world would think about our place in the universe. Out of the corner of his eye, White spotted something in the distance, an object that seemed to shadow the X-15, moving in perfect unison with the rocket plane, maintaining pace with a machine that could travel 5 times the speed of sound. White wasn't one to be easily shaken, but this was different. This was something that he couldn't explain. There it was, just outside his window, a small object, no bigger than his hand, floating effortlessly in the vacuum of space. It didn't appear to be man-made, yet it moved with an eerie precision as if it was following the X-15's every move. The object hovered at a distance of about 30 or 40 feet, far too close for comfort, yet distant enough to remain just out of reach. What was it? A satellite? A piece of debris? Or something far more mysterious? In that moment, White's mind raced. He wasn't sure whether to be terrified or mesmerized by the object's strange behavior. It was flying faster than anything humanity had ever built. No plane, no spacecraft could travel at such incredible speeds without burning up in the atmosphere. Yet this object, whatever it was, seemed perfectly at ease, moving alongside the X-15 as if it belonged there. For several minutes, the object remained in his line of sight, a silent companion in the vast expanse of space. It didn't seem to have any purpose other than to follow him, to move with him, and to leave him with a question that would haunt him for years to come. When White finally landed the X-15 and debriefed the engineers at NASA, he recounted the strange encounter. The object, he explained, was small, about the size of his hand, and it tumbled and moved through space in an unpredictable yet controlled manner. There was no rational explanation for it. It wasn't a known satellite, and it certainly wasn't a piece of debris. White's story was clear, consistent, and utterly baffling. But the more he described the object, the more questions it raised. What was it? Where did it come from? And why had it been shadowing him as he soared through the upper reaches of Earth's atmosphere? The mystery deepened when NASA attempted to verify the encounter. They had cameras on board, cameras that were designed to capture every moment of the X-15's flights. Surely if this object had been caught on film, it would provide some answers. But the footage, if it ever existed, seemed to have vanished. No one knew where it had gone, and the lack of any physical evidence left the story hanging in the air like an unresolved question. Without that crucial footage, White's testimony was the only thing that remained, a personal account from a man who had nothing to gain from fabricating such a story. This wasn't a man prone to exaggeration or fantasy. Robert White was an experienced test pilot, a veteran of 3 wars, and a man who had flown planes at speeds and altitudes that most of us could only dream of. He had no reason to make up such an encounter. Yet without the footage to corroborate his claims, many people remained skeptical. Was it a glitch in the plane's instruments, a trick of the light? Or had White truly seen something that defied explanation? The debate raged on, but one thing remained clear. The object, whatever it was, had followed White through the vastness of space. As the years passed, NASA's official explanation seemed to suggest that the mysterious object was simply a byproduct of the X-15's experimental propulsion system. They theorized that the supercooled liquid nitrogen used in the plane's engines caused ice crystals and flakes to form on the surface of the plane. As the plane maneuvered through the thin atmosphere, these ice crystals would break off and float away. The sunlight reflecting off these ice crystals, they suggested, could explain the strange appearance of the object. It was a plausible theory, but for many, it wasn't enough to dispel the mystery of what White had seen that day. For Robert White, the experience was something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. It wasn't just a strange flight, it was an encounter with the unknown, a reminder that no matter how far we push the boundaries of technology, there are still mysteries out there that we may never fully understand. The question remains, what did Robert White see that day? Was it a piece of space debris, a satellite, or something far more mysterious, something that defied all explanation? Even today, we are left with more questions than answers, and the mystery of that encounter lingers in the air, waiting to be solved. In many ways, Major Robert White's encounter with the mysterious object was a glimpse into a new world, one that still holds many secrets. It was a moment of discovery, of exploration, and of adventure. And while we may never know the full truth of what he saw, it is a reminder that the universe is far more complex and mysterious than we could ever imagine. The boundaries of space and time are still being explored, and with each new discovery, we are reminded that there is always more to learn, more to uncover, and more to explore. On the afternoon of July 17, 1962, Major Robert White, a seasoned pilot with a long military history, sat in the cockpit of a cutting-edge X-15 aircraft, preparing for another high-stakes flight in the skies above the Earth. Aboard the X-15, White was to experience something no human had ever felt before: speeds faster than sound, heights higher than most satellites, and a vast, uncharted frontier beyond Earth's atmosphere. This was a time of great technological advancements and uncertainty, a time when the Cold War had gripped the world with tensions, and space exploration was not just an ambition, it was a race. As White ascended into the stratosphere, reaching over 45,000 feet beneath the mighty wings of a B-52 bomber, everything seemed routine. The mighty jet surged forward, its engines burning fiercely, propelling White and the X-15 rocket plane to incredible speeds of nearly 3,800 miles per hour. He was now on the edge of the atmosphere, a place few had ever reached, and certainly no one had gone at the speeds he was achieving. The air was thin, the view extraordinary, and the feeling in his gut, exhilaration mixed with the tiniest hint of fear. But just as the world seemed to stretch beyond the horizon and the limits of human imagination, something unexpected and entirely perplexing occurred. As White hurtled through the upper layers of Earth's atmosphere, something caught his eye. It was a movement, something out of place. A small object, no larger than the size of his hand, seemed to match his plane's speed and trajectory, darting through the vacuum of space alongside him. The eerie stillness of the scene seemed to amplify this strange occurrence, and White, with the calm focus of a test pilot, radioed ground control. "I'm seeing something up here, several objects. They're keeping pace with me." The objects hovered in his vision. The most curious of them all, a dark shape, floated effortlessly through space, keeping a perfect distance from the X-15. No wings, no propellers, no visible means of propulsion. Just this mysterious, unidentifiable shape hanging in the void. White's heart raced. Here he was, flying faster than any human had ever flown, higher than any human had ever been, and yet he was not alone. The sensation of being watched, of something foreign, perhaps even extraterrestrial, moving with him, sent a chill down his spine. His mission, which had been one of pure science and technological pursuit, had just taken an unexpected turn into the unknown. The object seemed almost deliberate. It wasn't just floating aimlessly, it appeared to be tracking his every move, as if it knew where he was going. He had to act fast. He needed to figure out what he was dealing with and whether or not it posed a danger to him and his aircraft. Was it some kind of military satellite, a secret government test, or something altogether more unnerving? As he focused on the object, it didn't remain static. It shifted, tumbling through space as if it were alive. For what felt like several minutes, the strange craft paced him, keeping just enough distance to be unsettling, but not enough to fully identify. White's mind raced, but there was no time for panic. There was no panic in White's voice when he reported the sighting. There was only a calm, scientific curiosity. As a trained pilot, he knew how to maintain composure under pressure, but this was no ordinary flight. He was not just piloting a rocket plane, he was piloting into the unknown. When White landed safely, his report of the sighting was part of a thorough debrief with the engineers, but as the days passed, the implications of what he had seen would begin to settle in. The engineers, too, were baffled. How could a man-made object keep pace with a machine that could fly faster than the speed of sound? Was this a new type of aircraft, a military satellite, or perhaps something beyond human technology? To make matters more bizarre, one of the onboard cameras had supposedly captured the strange event, a video that would have provided undeniable proof of what White had witnessed. Yet the footage mysteriously disappeared. How could this happen? Was it lost, or was it deliberately hidden? The very idea that a piece of footage from one of the most advanced aircraft ever built was nowhere to be found cast a dark shadow of doubt over the entire event. It wasn't just an unsettling sighting, it was the beginning of a cover-up, or perhaps the beginning of a conspiracy. The mystery deepened as the official explanation from NASA emerged. Ground Control, with all the authority of the space agency behind it, dismissed the sightings as a byproduct of the X-15's experimental propulsion system. The extreme cold caused by the rocket's supercooled nitrogen engines had allegedly created ice crystals, which were then blown off the plane as it sped through the sky. The shimmering, irregular shapes that White had seen might have been nothing more than these harmless ice flakes reflecting the sunlight and creating the illusion of movement. But was this really the case? Could something as mundane as ice explain the experience that had left one of NASA's top test pilots questioning everything he knew about flight? The official explanation seemed too simple, almost too neat. Was it possible that something far more extraordinary had been at play, something the government, or even NASA, was unwilling to acknowledge? As White and the engineers discussed the strange event, the public's interest only grew. If something as high-tech as the X-15, one of the fastest machines ever created, could be stalked by an unidentified object, then what did that mean for humanity's place in the cosmos? Were we truly alone in the universe? Could the answer lie just beyond our atmosphere, in the void between Earth and the stars? The silence that followed was deafening. While NASA offered an official story, one that seemed grounded in rational explanation, the public, especially those who had heard White's first-hand account, was not so easily convinced. The debate began to swirl. Was it possible that White had seen something that no one was willing to admit? An extraterrestrial visitor? A secret government craft? Or something else entirely? From another dimension, perhaps? The mystery persisted. It wasn't just about what White had seen, but about the implications of what he hadn't seen, the footage that vanished, the silence from officials, and the lingering question that haunted anyone who heard the story. If this was just ice, why did it move like a sentient being? For some, White's experience was a brief moment of confusion, a blip in an otherwise successful mission. But for others, it was a catalyst that sparked a renewed fascination with the unknown. It opened up the possibility that the mysteries of space, once thought to be too distant or too abstract, might one day come crashing down on humanity, forcing us to confront the reality that we are not alone in the universe. The eerie presence that stalked White in the vastness of space continues to linger in the minds of those who hear this story. It raises more questions than answers and challenges our understanding of what we think we know about our place in the cosmos. Could there be more out there, hidden just beyond our reach, watching and waiting for the moment when we are ready to face the truth? As the years have passed, many have dismissed White's encounter as a mere anomaly, but for those who choose to believe, his sighting remains a compelling piece of evidence that suggests that perhaps we are only beginning to understand the true vastness of the universe and the strange, unexplained forces that may lie within it. In the early days of space exploration, few events could rival the excitement and wonder that gripped the world as NASA embarked on its daring mission to push the boundaries of human knowledge and exploration. In the 1960s, at the height of the Cold War, the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union was not just a battle of technological might, but also a competition to understand the cosmos. Yet even as humanity reached new heights, it was not just the rockets and spacecraft that sparked awe, it was also the mysteries that accompanied them, phenomena that seemed to defy explanation. One such mystery occurred in 1962 during a routine mission of the X-15 rocket plane, a vessel designed to push the limits of human flight. The X-15 was an aircraft like no other, powered by rockets and capable of reaching altitudes where the Earth's atmosphere ended and space began. It was part of NASA's experimental efforts to understand the unknown frontiers of high-speed, high-altitude flight. The chief test pilot for the X-15, Major Robert White, had seen and experienced a number of strange occurrences during his tenure, but nothing prepared him for the oddity that would unfold one fateful day during a flight that would take him farther than any human before him. As Major White soared at more than 60 miles above the Earth, traveling at speeds of over 3,800 miles per hour, something caught his eye. A strange object, small in size, seemingly moving in sync with the X-15. The object was not immediately identifiable. It wasn't an aircraft, nor did it resemble any known satellite or man-made object. It was simply there, hovering near him, matching the speed and altitude of the X-15 as he blasted through the upper reaches of Earth's atmosphere. The mystery deepened as White observed the object, a sense of disbelief and wonder filling him as he described it tumbling and shifting in the air, almost as if it were alive. As White tried to make sense of what he was seeing, he radioed back to ground control, his voice crackling through the intercom, informing them of the sighting. "There are things out there," he reported, his words filled with a mix of caution and disbelief. The object was small, about the size of his hand, but its movements were erratic and unsettling, almost as if it had a mind of its own. White, who had flown countless missions and seen his share of anomalies, was taken aback by the sheer impossibility of what he was witnessing. Could it be some kind of space debris, a lost piece of equipment, or was it something far stranger, something beyond human comprehension? The incident, though perplexing, did not end there. Upon landing, White reported the sighting to the engineers as part of his debrief, sticking to his story with remarkable consistency. The object had remained in his view for several minutes, staying with him as he flew at speeds far beyond anything human beings had experienced before. This was no ordinary observation. It was a first-hand account of something that had defied explanation. Yet in a twist that only deepened the mystery, the video footage that was supposedly recorded by onboard cameras on the X-15 vanished without a trace. Despite the fact that the aircraft was equipped with multiple cameras designed to capture all aspects of the flight, no footage of the mysterious object was ever made available. This only fueled speculation that NASA might be hiding something, that there was more to this sighting than anyone was willing to admit. In the face of such an extraordinary claim, NASA offered an official explanation, one that many found hard to accept. According to the agency, the strange phenomenon that White had witnessed was nothing more than a byproduct of the X-15's experimental propulsion system. The rocket-powered plane used supercooled liquid nitrogen, which, in the vacuum of space, created ice crystals and flakes that could break free and float alongside the aircraft. NASA explained that these ice particles, reflecting the sunlight at such high altitudes, could have appeared as small, erratic objects in White's field of view. To many, this seemed like an overly simplistic explanation, one that failed to account for the strange behavior and movement of the object. But for Major White, and for others who had witnessed similar phenomena, this explanation did little to quell the growing suspicion that something more was at play. Ice crystals or not, there was something undeniably strange about what he had seen that day. The mystery deepened further when NASA's official reports noted that the onboard cameras had captured the object, yet these videos were conveniently absent from the archives. White, who had always been a credible and seasoned pilot, seemed as puzzled as anyone. He had no reason to fabricate his account, no reason to claim he had seen something that defied explanation. But the lack of hard evidence, the missing footage, and the official response only added fuel to the fire of uncertainty. As the years went by, the story of the X-15 sighting became one of those tales that lingered in the shadows of space exploration, a whisper of something larger than anyone could understand. Yet the debate over what White had seen persisted, and with each passing year, new theories emerged. Could the object have been a piece of space junk? Or was it something even more elusive, perhaps a spacecraft from another world, a visitor from the cosmos? Without the footage to corroborate the account, the question remained unanswered, and the mystery only grew deeper. It was not the first time that strange objects had been reported in the sky or in space, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. But what made this particular incident so captivating was the sheer mystery of it, the idea that there were things out there just beyond our understanding that might not fit neatly into the categories of science or technology that we had come to rely on. And as NASA's engineers and astronauts continued to explore the far reaches of space, it became clear that the cosmos held more than just planets and stars. It held mysteries that could challenge the very limits of human knowledge. For those who witnessed the event or heard of it in passing, there was a sense of awe and wonder that came with the idea that there was so much more to learn, so much more to discover. The mystery of the X-15 sighting was not just a question of what Major White had seen, but of what lay beyond the limits of human perception. What else could be out there, waiting to be discovered? The universe was vast, and for those willing to look, it promised endless surprises. And yet the explanation offered by NASA that the object was nothing more than ice crystals formed by the aircraft's propulsion system remained the official narrative, much to the chagrin of those who believed that there was more to the story. For some, this felt like a cover-up, a deliberate attempt to close the book on a mystery that was simply too strange to be understood. The missing footage, the lack of answers, and the sheer strangeness of the sighting all pointed to something that had been swept under the rug. But for others, the mystery remained unsolved, an enigma that continued to captivate the imagination. In the years since that day, in 1962, the story of the X-15 sighting has continued to inspire speculation and debate. Was it an alien craft? Was it a misidentified piece of space debris? Or was it something entirely new, something humanity had yet to comprehend? The mystery persists, a reminder that the universe is full of things we don't understand, and perhaps never will. But one thing is certain, the quest for answers will continue, and the search for the truth will always be part of humanity's journey into the unknown. For those of us who are fascinated by the mysteries of space, the story of Major White's sighting serves as a poignant reminder that we are only just beginning to scratch the surface of what lies beyond. As we continue to explore the stars and the far reaches of the cosmos, we must keep our minds open to the possibility that there are things out there that will challenge everything we thought we knew. And perhaps, just perhaps, we will one day find the answers to the questions that have lingered for so long. Until then, the mystery remains, waiting to be solved. In the cold, dark expanse of space, there are phenomena that continue to baffle and astonish even the most seasoned scientists. These strange occurrences, while captivating, also invoke a sense of mystery and awe that grips those who dare to explore them. One such series of events took place in 2012, when the skies of several countries were filled with a series of bizarre, inexplicable sounds. These eerie noises, caught on cell phones and home videos, echoed across the globe, from Australia to Europe, Asia, and the Americas. People, puzzled and anxious, were drawn out of their homes to witness what could only be described as a cosmic mystery unfolding right above their heads. For many, it seemed like a scene straight out of a science fiction movie. The noises that filled the air were unlike anything that had been heard before, deep, resonating, and oddly familiar to the human ear, yet totally unexplainable by any known source. Initial meteorological data ruled out any known weather phenomena that could cause such sounds, leaving scientists scrambling for answers. Could these strange noises be some form of communication from beyond Earth? Was it a warning from the cosmos itself, or something even more extraordinary, a sign of extraterrestrial life reaching out? Scientists, desperate to understand the source of these sounds, turned to an incredible discovery they made while studying the Northern Lights. It was found that violent solar bombardments, powerful eruptions of solar wind, could cause disruptions in Earth's protective magnetic field. When the magnetic lines are snapped, They slingshot intense bursts of cosmic energy toward Earth. These bursts, known as space quakes, produce waves that not only affect the Earth's atmosphere, but also create sounds in the audible frequency range. Imagine a cosmic storm so powerful it resonates through the very fabric of space itself, sending ripples that are heard even here on Earth. The term spacequake might sound like something out of a futuristic novel, but the implications are astonishing. These space quakes are electromagnetic in nature, but their magnetic components are strong enough to penetrate the Earth's atmosphere. However, the sound portion, the actual noise, doesn't reach us as we would expect sound to travel. Instead, it refracts before it can reach the lower altitudes of the atmosphere, leaving scientists with only the faintest traces of their sonic signature. It is almost impossible for most people to grasp the enormity of this phenomenon. The idea that space itself, with its vacuum and vast emptiness, could create sound waves that reach us in such a profound way feels almost surreal. And yet here was evidence that we were hearing the very vibrations of the universe itself, an invisible force that moves through the cosmos with a power beyond our comprehension. Despite the efforts of scientists, the origin of these strange sounds remains a mystery. The space quakes have opened up a world of possibilities, a world where the laws of physics are stretched to their limits, and where the boundaries between what we know and what we don't seem to blur. For those who heard these sounds, and for those who tried to explain them, there is a deep sense of wonder and excitement. But it also raises unsettling questions. What else could be out there? What could cause these powerful waves, and what other phenomena are out of reach of our understanding? Adding to the enigma was a strange occurrence in the skies over southern India in 2001. In a region called Kerala, villagers were startled by what appeared to be a biblical event: blood-red rain. This wasn't the kind of rain people were used to seeing. The skies darkened, and torrents of crimson liquid poured down, covering everything in its path. Many feared it was some kind of plague, something unnatural. Yet, as bizarre as it seemed, scientists discovered that the rain wasn't merely a freak weather event. Within this blood-red rain, they found biological particles, tiny, living organisms that had somehow fallen from the sky. It's not every day that the world faces a rainstorm of such strange, unsettling nature. The villagers, who were initially frightened, were left questioning whether the rain was a warning, a sign of something greater. What could possibly cause such a phenomenon? Some speculated it was linked to a disintegrating meteor that had exploded upon entering Earth's atmosphere, leaving behind strange particles that stained the rain red. Could this meteor have contained unknown life forms? Were these living organisms from space itself arriving on Earth in the debris of a cosmic visitor? These thoughts, thrilling and terrifying, lingered in the minds of many. As scientists delved deeper into this mystery, they began to ponder even more perplexing possibilities. Could space, in all its vastness, be home to life forms that we've yet to discover? If life can thrive in such hostile environments, whether in the form of spacequakes, meteors, or even the particles in the red rain, what other forms of life might exist in places we've never even considered? The idea that life may exist beyond Earth, in forms unimaginable to us, opens up a whole new world of exploration and wonder. The possibility that the universe is teeming with life, just waiting to be discovered, leaves us questioning what we think we know. Not all mysteries can be so easily explained. Consider the case of strange purple blobs that appeared in Texas in 1979. These odd, gelatinous masses, about the size of a telephone, had the appearance of something extraterrestrial, but were dismissed by authorities as being the result of industrial waste. Still, some believed the blobs were proof of something far more mysterious, a remnant from a cosmic visitor. They were the same color as a phenomenon reported decades earlier in Philadelphia when officers discovered a glowing purple mass that seemed to move on its own before evaporating into thin air. The strange purple blobs, whether from a space origin or a natural earthly occurrence, raised many questions that continue to linger. What processes in space could create such oddities? And what do these occurrences tell us about the universe's potential to support life forms entirely different from anything we've imagined? For some, the similarities between these blobs and the behavior of slime molds here on Earth offer a clue. Slime molds are intelligent, single-celled organisms that can form cooperative networks to find food, and their slimy, gooey nature makes them strangely similar to the blobs discovered in both Philadelphia and Texas. Could these blobs be a form of life in its most primitive and alien state, just waiting to be studied? And yet, these blobs are not the only mystery space has thrown our way. In 2012, NASA's Kepler Space Telescope made a groundbreaking discovery that still baffles astronomers to this day. Two planets orbiting a distant star in the Cygnus constellation were behaving in a way that no one could explain. Both planets have been pulled out of the star's equatorial plane, something that doesn't typically happen during the formation of planets. This odd behavior led to the theory that these planets could be artificial. Were they the product of some unknown force, perhaps even a civilization far more advanced than ours? For the average observer, the idea that planets could be artificial or manipulated by unseen forces seems beyond belief. But it raises an unsettling thought. Could we be looking at the remnants of an ancient, technologically advanced civilization? Or perhaps could these planets be engineered for some purpose, their trajectories altered by some unseen hand? The more we discover, the more it becomes clear that space is full of hidden wonders, mysteries, and unexplained phenomena that challenge our understanding of the universe. Each of these events, the sounds from space, the red rain, the strange blobs, and the odd behavior of distant planets, invites us into a world full of questions, adventure, and possibilities. It challenges everything we know about life, space, and the very nature of the cosmos. It evokes a sense of wonder, a desire to explore and understand, while also raising doubts and suspicions about what might be lurking just beyond the veil of what we can comprehend. The universe is vast and full of secrets. As we continue to look into the sky, we realize that there is far more to explore than we could ever have imagined. Each mystery is a doorway to something greater, and every discovery brings us one step closer to unlocking the truth about our place in the cosmos. But with each answer, new questions arise, questions that will continue to haunt us, excite us, and drive us to explore the unknown. And perhaps in the end, the greatest mystery of all is not what we find, but what we have yet to discover.